were trying to start it so we could edit it, but welcome, Mary. So this is chatting with Mary about real estate and the current things that are happening. I know, Mary, you went to Sacramento.
I did.
And I was with you. And how many other agents do you think were in Sacramento?
In Sacramento, we took over the town, and there was probably close to 3,000 real estate agents, realtors in Sacramento.
Right, because there is a difference between real estate agents and realtors. So can you tell the audience what's the difference between the two?
A realtor pays their dues and belongs to the California Association of Realtors. It belongs to the National Association of Realtors. If you do not belong, you cannot wear the
You can't wear the R.
You cannot wear the R, that big old R. But what that R does for us, it keeps us informed, it keeps us up to date, it educates us, and as an association, we're one of the largest associations that advocates for consumer property rights. No other association fights for consumer property rights like we do.
Now, from what I understand, because I've been very involved in the whole real estate agent, realtor association, and now being president of my local association, the thing that I've noticed is, what do you think the percentage is? I mean, from what I get, what I'm seeing is we have about 197,000 members in the California Association of Realtors. And when we went to Sacramento, we had how many, you said?
Close to 3,000.
So that's 1%.
Yeah, close.
A little around, about 1%. Now, what I really want to focus on with buyers and sellers and consumers who are interested in real estate, and there's a lot of people who are interested in real estate, is why don't you ask the agent you're working with, how involved are you with property owner rights? And how much do you know about what's happening with the law in California? Because the law in California, there's a lot of things happening that people don't know about. And there's a lot of people on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, talking like they know everything, but did they really go to the meetings in Sacramento? And do they really know what's happening? Mary here was there, I was there, and about another 3,000 of us were there, and we were fighting and advocating, actually, for property owners. So Mary's going to tell us what we did in Sacramento.
What we did in Sacramento. Oh my God. What we did in Sacramento. Well, we attended various meetings that gave us updates. We attended meetings so that we could go to the Hill and meet with our legislators to talk to them about the various bills, because they write, our legislators, God bless them, write about 2,000 bills every year. So,
and it was more than 2,000 this year, right?
It was. And so we were there to discuss the bills that have an impact on real estate, then have an impact, negative and or positive, to the consumer. And so we're up there advocating, telling them, we don't want you to do this bill because it's going to hurt the consumer, and why. And, oh, this is a good bill, we'll help you and we'll support it because it's good for the consumer, and why.
And you know what I'm seeing, you know, my son is 31 years old, and a lot of, I don't say children, because they're grown adults now, that are, yeah, they're still our kids. You know, they're somewhere, I'd say people between, 35 years and slightly younger, and maybe some of us that are older are just so fed up with the government that we don't know what to do, and we think, oh, it doesn't matter to vote. But what did the legislators say about all of us real estate agents, realtors, coming in, and remember what they said about us?
It had an impact.
They said it had a definite impact, and if nobody does anything, nothing's going to happen. But if a bunch of us write to our legislators, and if you're in California and you want something to change in California, you need to get a bunch of people to sign petitions and move forward. If you're doing something that has to do with Washington, D.C. and our president, which we're going to talk about next, because from Sacramento, her phone just went out, but that's okay. So from Sacramento, we had one day home, and we turned around and went to Washington, D.C., which we're going to talk about in our next half of our video that we're doing to update people, because we want to update not just consumers, but realtors who have no clue what we're doing. And so going on of the things that we did in Sacramento.
Well, just to add to what you're saying, you've got to take a moment and think, do you want to let things happen to you? Or do you want to use your voice with that vote and communicate with your legislators? They listen. You can send them an email, you can call them on the phone, You can send them a letter.
And it's actually really easy to meet with them.
And
I know when I wanted to meet with Philip Chen, I just called his office and made an appointment. He asked me what it was about, and I said property owner rights. And he let me come into his office. He even gave me an award for taking the time to say, this is what something that needs to be looked at, and you need to go to the Hill and discuss it.
well, actually, they encourage and they like to hear from us because they want to hear from their constituents. What's going on?
And by the way,
what
tell
we
them
need
what a
to do.
constituent is, because like we're talking political things, and a lot of people don't think that real estate has to do with political things. But if you keep watching us and learn what they're doing to not just, you got to realize if it's going to be a tenant state, because that's what California is turning into, then it's going to be very hard for you to buy a property. And what we're trying to do is help people buy properties, but we're also trying to help the mom and pop landlords who don't know what to do. They don't even know that they have laws and regulations that are coming up that are going to affect them adversely. So where were we? I just like, I get so excited about it.
You're jumping around here.
I know. So we're going to
Okay.
stay with Sacramento. We're going to talk about what we did in Sacramento.
Well, that was part of what we did discuss in Sacramento. We did talk about consumers' property rights, and as a property owner, if you own rental property, there are a lot of restrictions. There's a lot of rules and regulations. You know, effective, I believe it's in July, that's coming up.
Absolutely.
The maximum security deposit that you can charge cannot exceed 1 month's rent.
But there are loopholes.
Yes, there
But
is.
you have to know what you're doing, because, you know, when talking about the mom and pop landlords, and these are people who, when I taught people how to invest, I would say, you know, they'd say, how many properties should I have? And I wanted 3 children, and I said, well, I want 3 children, so I want 3 properties plus the one I live in. So when my children grow up, they have a home. And so these people, you know, maybe they didn't have those 3 kids, but they have these properties. Now, to fall under mom and pop, to fall under a mom and pop, not a landlord, they're called property owners or property providers. How many properties can I have to fall under those rules, Mary?
You tell them.
You tell them. She's like, you tell them. All right, so the one I live in doesn't count, but I can have 2 more properties, so a total of 3 properties. 2 I'm renting out, and 1 I'm living in, and that makes me exempt from the new laws where I can only collect 1 month security deposit. So because of that, I'd be able to collect more. But if I was a corporation and I had more properties, I would be under the new laws that say I can only collect 1 month, right?
Right.
Now the question I had, and we just came from a meeting, but that's going to be another video where the attorneys talk to us about it. What's the difference if you're an LLC or a mom and pop corporation, right?
Correct. They're going to be providing us with that information.
And we're here to keep you guys current, and we're talking from, like, literally we just came from a meeting and we were in Sacramento and Washington.
I think we need to make it perfectly clear, and we should have probably done this from the beginning, is that we are not talking on behalf of CAR, Tri-Counties, or NAR.
Any of the associations. This is our opinion.
Our opinion and just our opinion. And we are not attorneys, so we are not providing legal advice. We are merely sharing with you information that has been shared with us, because for some reason there are so many people that don't know about the changes that have taken place, the changes that are about to take place, and the impact that it's going to have on them. With my clients, they purchase property for specific reasons. It was for college education, it was for retirement, they were looking at
for wealth building.
Correct. And they were
to
looking
give their
at
family wealth.
The bigger picture. And the problem, the state of California has fallen down on the number of units that they needed to build to provide us. For housing, they should have been building to keep up with the population something like 300,000 a year.
And we're not building any.
Okay, we're lucky if we got close to 80,000. It was something like 79,000. And you know, don't take these numbers to the bank, but the point is that we were way off. So now, because of that, and this has been going on for years.
We have lack of homes.
Years, not just a couple of years, but years, like decades. And so now, because of that, there is a shortage. There is a shortage of inventory to rent and or to sell. And the problem is that the government, and I'm not trying to be disingenuous to the
And remember, the
government.
one thing I wanted to say when we first started is a lot of people say, as realtors, they don't want to be political. And unfortunately, but true, being a realtor involves a lot of political information. And what we want to make sure that you know is the realtor party is not red, it's not blue, it's purple, because we're bipartisan, and we're not siding with any side. We're siding for homeowners' rights. And if you're working with a realtor, in my opinion, and in probably a lot of the people, we are the people who go and fight for you at the Hill. When Mary says the Hill, we mean we're actually talking to senators and congress people, and we care about you. And you want a realtor that cares about you. You don't want somebody who's just trying to make money off of you. And if that's the case, they're just trying to make money off of you, they're going to make their money off of you, and they're going to go on to the next, and they're not going to help you with your next step. Whereas we all learn how to go, okay, you're selling your house. How can we help you get to the next home? What are you looking to do? Do you want to keep that home instead? I mean, I've stopped people, like you have too. We've stopped people from selling their house. We've lost commissions to help them say, hey, why don't you rent that property out? Keep it as an investment while it's building wealth, and this is how you can buy another home. We teach people how to do that. And the real estate agents out there that aren't involved in their association need to wake up and need to get involved so that they can help their clients better.
Okay, getting
Okay,
back to
Getting back, but I just want to
getting
say,
back to the number of units that were built. The problem is, and this is a reality, it's not, it actually isn't political until I try to encourage you to start sending emails and letters and phone calls. However, the reality is that the government is putting the burden of the housing shortage on the backs of the mom and pops. The problem is that rental income that they get is to make that mortgage payment.
mm-hmm.
If they do not receive that rental payment, they cannot make that mortgage payment. Therefore, now because they can't make the mortgage payment, the property's in jeopardy of being foreclosed upon and being lost, or in order to protect their credit, they said, I can't afford it anymore, we have to put it up for sale. That house gets sold, now that house is lost as part of the inventory in the rental market. So now you just have one less house, one less home to rent to a prospective renter. So rent control does not work. It doesn't help. It hurts. It has a negative
And rent control
impact.
is one of the things we are fighting for.
Correct.
Now, and they have proven by, it was San Francisco area that had a really big problem with rent control. They have proven that rent control hurts tenants. And the problem is a lot of people in California, over 50% of them are tenants. And so when you guys go to vote, or anybody goes to vote and they vote against not the landlord, but the property provider, that's their new name. If they vote against them, but they vote for the rent control, what that does, and what it's done to me as a property owner, is it's made me realize that, well, if I can't raise my rent, I'm going to have to raise it every year the way that I need to, instead of what I've done. And in the past, somebody moves into one of my properties, they're $900 a month, and they're like that for 6 or 10 years. But because when I go to raise my rent, I have a cap on it, then that's making me say, well, oops, I should probably raise it every year. So if you don't want your rent to go up every year, you'd probably vote against property rent control. But go on, Mary, about some more stuff we learned in Sacramento.
Sacramento. I'm trying to keep it.
Keep it real.
Keep it real, and since we've been focusing on rent control and rents and how it impacts mom and pop, the other thing that we were trying to bring to their attention was the SALT Act, which is state and local taxes, and that has an impact on married and single people. We also discussed capital gains because
Right.
the federal government is trying to do away with capital gains. We also, when we meet with our legislators, we also tell them thank you for the bills that they have passed in order to help the consumer and to help properties. Because you got to remember, real estate has this major benefit. Every time a house sells, it creates jobs. They've done studies, and it was some time ago where they said every time a house sells, it creates 4.2 jobs.
Wow.
And they've established and proven that children that live in their own homes do better in school. Employees that own their own house are better employees.
Well, and think about, the California Association of Realtors, they also fought for us to be able to work during the pandemic because originally Governor Newsom thought we were not essential. And we showed them, look, if we can continue to sell homes and help people buy homes, this is the different jobs that are impacted, and these people can still earn money and survive through the pandemic. And a lot of people don't know that the Association of Realtors goes up to bat for consumers.
We fought for Proposition 19. And if you don't know what Proposition 19, you had Proposition 13, which was passed several
Which they're
years
trying to
ago.
hurt Proposition 13.
Correct. But Prop 13 was created and passed because it was trying to help elderly people, your senior citizens, be allowed to remain in their homes because the property taxes continue to go so high that a lot of them were being forced out of their homes, forced to sell it, lose it. They weren't able to keep it. So Proposition 13 establishes that your property taxes are based on your purchase price. So long before the interest rates went up and we had this affordability issue because of lack of inventory, there's a supply and demand issue. We don't have a lot of inventory, so that creates a high demand, and that drives the cost of homes up, not the real estate commission, which
is the next conversation we're
Okay.
going to have, is
Right.
about what's happening
Okay.
with real estate commission and what you should do if you want to buy a home. Because I think that everybody and mother's uncle should be buying a house now before August. Because
So-
once August hits, that's a whole nother story.
So you had a lot of senior citizens that were remaining in their 4,000 square foot house or 3,000 square foot house, and it was just, two people or one person, but they weren't moving because they could not afford the taxes. And at the time, you only had 11 counties that were cooperating with each other out of the 50-something counties that we have in the state of California. Well, what Prop 19 did, which we were instrumental,
We were fighting for that.
that we got it through, is that if you're 55 and older, if you're permanently disabled, or a victim of a disaster, victim of a flood, earthquake, fires.
So one of those, 55
Okay.
plus, disabled, or a
A
victim.
victim of a catastrophic Mother Nature catastrophe, tragedy, you're able to sell your house and take your tax base with you. So whatever your tax base is currently right now, you sell it. Whatever you sell your house for, you move to another one. There's a math that they do, and I apologize because I can't give it to you right now, that to calculate how much your taxes would be, but it's considerably lower and it becomes more affordable, and it helps those seniors to be able to move so that we can keep the thing stimulated. Years ago, you had somebody would refinance every 3 years and they would sell their home every 6 years. So you had the properties were turning.
They were moving.
And you also had, but population has grown and the properties haven't been built, so we have a shortage. We have a
Well,
major
let me
issue
give
with
you
housing.
numbers, because I teach real estate, obviously, and that's why we're here, is to educate you. But an example of the numbers so that you guys understand it is, let's say that your parents bought their home like for $350,000. They bought their home 20 years ago for $350,000, and now their house is worth $1.3 million. And their capital gain, so what they're going to get when they sell their house currently, because this is it Congressman Pineda?
Yes.
Okay, he's the one who's saying so we have not changed the capital gains law. That's one of the things we were fighting for in Sacramento, correct?
Right.
We have not changed the
DC.
We did this one in DC, so I probably should save it for DC, but we're kind of talking about it because it has to do with California too. Is if I sell my house or your parents sell their home, right now, if it's a married couple that have been on title for 2 years or more, they have they can take the $500,000 off the capital gain. So if they made $1 million, they would only pay capital gains on $500,000 instead of the full $1 million. So that would save them like 500 times 3, like $150,000.
Okay, don't mean to correct you, but I gotta correct you.
Go.
Their base is 350 because they bought the house.
Right.
at
So
350.
if their base is 350,
So now you
and
add
they
the
sold it for
500 to that.
1.350, that's
So
$1
it's
million tax
850.
base.
Right, add the 500 to the 350, now you're at 850.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you get to add, we're not tax people, okay? Gotta know that.
But the
then
thing is,
add
it's going to
any
save you a
improvements
ton of
and
money
stuff.
in property taxes.
Whereas before you would just be at 350.
Right. But what they're doing now, the current one, is I believe Congressman Pineda has asked the government and put a bill out there to increase it to $1 million. So if your parents sell their house for $1.3 million and they bought it for $300,000, they're going to pay almost no capital gain tax.
They won't have capital.
They'll have no capital gains. Now, if you're single and you live in your home, okay, you only right now get $250,000, and they're trying to push that up to $500,000 because what they're saying is that hasn't changed for 22 years. But they also want to up that and have it continue to go up based on the increase of cost of living. But the other thing that I wanted to mention in California, and we didn't touch that much on it, but we did push for it because they are consumers, is same-sex couples. Because if you're a same-sex couple and you're both on title, because you're not married, you don't get the $1 million. You only get the $500,000, and the current $500,000 versus $250,000. So we're there helping anybody we can when it comes to regarding property taxes and the tax-based transfer. So in California, which was Sacramento, the tax-based transfer makes it so that if you sell your house, so I hate to keep talking because I know we brought you in, but I did have a house in Moreno Valley, and the man was selling it, and he was going to sell it for $300,000, and he bought it for $150,000. And this is what happened, and this is why you want to work with a realtor who knows what's going on. So this is exactly what happened. My client wanted to buy the house for $350,000, and this was our second look. And I always name my properties. I don't know about you, but I name them. So this one was called the pool house. He goes, I want a second look at the pool house. And we went there, and the owner met us there. His agent wasn't there. And he said to me, he goes, I'm really sorry you guys made the trip out here because I'm thinking of taking my house off the market. And that's exactly what's happening. Older people are taking their house off the market. And I said, well, why would you do that? And he said, well, I bought it for $150,000, and I'm selling it for $300,000. And what I was going to do is I was buying a bigger house for my daughter, my son-in-law, and their kids, and we were all going to live together. But if I buy that house for $300,000, my property taxes are going to go way up. And so I looked at him. He clearly looked about 68 years old, salt and pepper hair, and he was telling me his daughter and her grandkids and all that. And so I said, well, I don't know how old you are, but if you're over 55, you could take your property tax base with you. He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you bought it for $150,000, you're selling it for $300,000. If you buy another house for $300,000 or less, at that time the new law hadn't passed, and now the law says you can buy it for any amount. They're just going to do the calculations Mary was talking about. So at that time it was the same price. I said, if you're buying a house for $300,000, right, and you're selling it for $300,000, I go, you take your tax base with you. And he said to me, Mary, how do you know that? And I looked at him and I said, real estate's my business. He goes, you got to put that on silent. And I said, well, if real estate's your business, he goes, well, how come my realtor didn't know that? And he goes, how sure are you? And I'm pretty cocky when I know something. And I said, I'm pretty damn sure. He goes, how hard is it to transfer? And Mary's done escrow before, and escrow asks for your transfer. Are you transferring from a house that you live in to another house you live in? And I told him about it. He did it, and now he refers all his clients to me because I'm up on the information. So that's why you want to work with a real estate agent that actually is a realtor who's involved with their association and knows what we're doing. Is there anything else we did in Sacramento? We did the transfer tax. We did the law about, there's lots of laws that we're fighting, but what they do is they narrow it down to 4 items, somewhere between 2 and 4 items that we talk to our congressman about. And she has a list of everything that we did when we were up there, which is super great.
I can show you the list of the bills that we discussed. And I can show you the list of the bills that were bad and we wanted them to
but on can people go to car.org and see which ones we back up?
I don't know if you're not.
We're going to see if we can do that for you.
If you can't do it. But I've got 3 pages.
3 pages
of our senators and assemblymen, And what it does, it tells us what bills they supported, what bills, it gives me a list of the bills that they voted on. So we know who's voting to help with the consumer property rights and who's not.
Right.
And the sad thing is that we all presume that, and this is why they like for the people in their district to talk to them and communicate to them, because we like to think that they know everything, but unfortunately they don't, and they're dependent on their staff to provide them with information, and they're dependent on us to provide them with information. If we don't say anything,
they don't know what's going on.
They don't know what's going on. And as far as they're concerned, their constituents, the people that vote for them to put them in office, are all happy. The problem is you've got to speak up. Don't let things happen to you. Get involved and be part of making a difference. Be part of shaping how you live.
Well, because what I've noticed is right now, all of us are complaining about how bad the state of California is, how bad the government is, how bad things are happening. Well, like she just said, like Mary just said, if you don't speak up, they don't know we're unhappy. And we're going to talk about what happened in Washington, D.C. next. Today we were talking about Sacramento, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about Washington, D.C. We're also going to talk about the new BRBC. Now, that is something we talked about when we were in Sacramento.
Oh, God, yes.
Okay, so it's BRBC, and Mary's going to tell us what that means. But the other thing she's going to say is, guess what? It's going to become law. So go ahead and tell me.
Buyer's representative broker's compensation.
So what that means is if you want to see a property, before you go into that property, you have to sign this agreement. But we're going to talk about that when we talk about the meeting that we just came from and what's happening and why it's so important. If you think you want to buy a home in the near future, it should be yesterday and before August the 13th. Because original date was August the 17th, and as of yesterday, it's gotten pulled back to August the 13th. So if you guys want information on what's happening in California, this is the place to come to. Go ahead and go to my comment area, ask us questions. I'll have Mary answer questions if I don't know the answers. And then next we're going to talk about what happened in Washington, D.C. and what you need to know all over the country that's happening in real estate. And then we'll come back after that and we'll have a third video on the BRBC. But the BRBC is going to be mandatory. So anything else you want to say about Sacramento?
Not right now.
Well, I wish that we had the on and off switch. I was going to practice playing with it. So sorry about editing because it's live. I can't edit. But what we're going to do is we'll be back in a little bit and we'll be talking about Washington, D.C. and what you need to know all over the country, what's happening in real estate with Chatting with Mary. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Make sure you comment and you like.